Thank you, Mr. Bali, for your kind words. And good morning once again, friends. So I have been trusted to talk about building resilience into business model. As I said earlier also, you have a lot of experts here in this room. So today, I would like to just share my thoughts and my experience with you on total cost management. So let's start with what is happening in India. I have some media friends here, and just before I was walking in after the break, one of the media friends was asking me, what is your thought on demonetization? How it is going to impact the country? Is it really going to impact the country positively, negatively? So my thought process is that India is on a right track. I will not go into the political side of demonetization because it is very debatable, and let's restrict that to a 9 o'clock television show. But I think without being an expert economist, I can simply say economy for any country in the world is like a circle. And all of us have read that if 1 rupee goes into the economy, it has a multiplier effect. So clearly our banks are flushed with funds now. Even the deposits which people were keeping or the savings which the housewives and mothers and sisters and all of us were keeping at home, at least that is in the bank. So one thing is clear, the circle size has increased. And if the circle size increases, the diameter definitely increases, which means there will be economic growth. You don't have to be a economy guru to understand that. Yes, there will be some short-term impact, but I think the large, I would say there would be a large positive impact after a few months. When I see India, and we are today talking about total cost management, and I was saying earlier, we have to be competitive in India. If we are not competitive in our manufacturing, we cannot survive, and labor cost is not the only thing. I think one of the biggest things, today we say India is the 7th largest economy in the world. But when we see the 7th largest economy in the world, and we take top 10 economies of the world, all of them are today working at an interest rate of 0 to 5%. India works at 8 to probably 13% because small and medium enterprise, our suppliers, their cost of fund is really high. So when people like us, we write our business plans, our balance sheets, we keep a provision here, 8 to 10%. That's the cost. So how can this country be competitive? And that is one of the, strong argument we are putting, that, if you want manufacturing to move forward, you have to bring the cost of fund down. So it's a total ecosystem, because all of us sitting here in the room, being expert, can do changes in processes and things, but it can only drive efficiency to a certain level. So I think India is in a transformation phase. And clearly, when we talk about Make in India initiative, Digital India initiative, results can be debatable. But I think we are, at least this country has got a direction to move. There is an agenda to have discussion. And this demonetization, whether for good reasons or bad reasons, because we Indians also have a challenge in culturally changing our habits. But I think the way government is now pushing digital economy to the last person in the India, I think by default, we will take this quantum leap. This country has never seen a landline revolution. We straight away graduated to mobile. So I think this is another opportunity where we can straight away graduate to digital economy, and I think this is going to be a forceful way of making it happen, but I think overall it's going to be good. So at least As a country, we have got a direction. Now, when we say India, where does India stand? And yes, BRICS are challenged, and in my current role, apart from managing Indian subcontinent, I am also on the board of Africa, Middle East, India, and we discuss other countries. So if you see BRICS, for sure, India is on a right track. If we see 2015, 7.3% growth, 2016, 7.3, this is the latest one, and this morning I was reading 7.1. So, okay, fine, anything above 7. Yeah. Next year, 7.5%. And when we see China, it's slowing down. And then we see South Africa, which is, again, less than 1% this year. We see Russia, which is in negative. We see Brazil, which is in high negative. So that is what is BRICS. And I still remember, it was almost 2.5, 3 years back. There was an article in a leading economic paper in the country. And it was a full page with BRICS written there, and I was falling like this. And today, the only thing which has happened is you just turn the paper other side, because it's only I which is on the right track. So all of us should be very positive on that front, that yes, we are looking forward to a growth. And what is also changing is technology and innovation. When we see India, do you think India can only survive by exporting cheap manufacturing or value manufacturing products? No. I think our own consumption patterns will also decide a lot, because, economy cannot grow only on, exports, but obviously you need domestic demand. And our demographics is very different from demographics in the world. And how it is different? Because this is the only country where over 50% of population is less than 25 years of age. All of us are coming from manufacturing background, and I have experience in western side of the world as well as on this side of the world. Our manufacturing also is very different. Forget about demographics of this country. If you go to a western world, we are talking total cost management. If you go to a western world and we see plants in West, almost, and depending on which sector you are talking, almost 60 to 65% cost is labor cost, salaries, and 30 to 35% is utilities. So that is why you will see multinationals every time talking about headcount, that is what is there. But you come to India, it's reverse. Our labor cost or headcount cost is 30 to 35%. And our utility cost is 60 to 65%. When I say utility, in my industry, if I have to take an example, maybe energy. So I think we will have to, have a solution which is different from Western world. We cannot imitate and bring something to India, because actually it won't fit. So we have to find solutions, whether in form of processes or innovation, which has to be very different. So we are clearly seeing that India as a country is bringing technology, is bringing innovation, and as I mentioned earlier, the mission to Mars is a great example. And we are transforming. But who's bringing this revolution? I personally feel this is coming from the customer, because customer is very, very smart. We have seen certain industries, certain companies really vanishing just because they were not keeping pace with what customer really looks forward to. So there is definitely a customer revolution which is getting created by this new India, by this transformed India. And I think, when we talk about this digitization or demonetization, when a person sitting in the village will have that power on his smartphone, his expectation will be very different than what it is today. So if I still stick to Indian customer, and we are seeing that Indian economy is growing, but if you see the two pyramids, in 2012, the people, those who were, less affluent or deprived was only 60%. And now, if I see 2020, clearly that part is going to be only 45%. And the income levels are increasing. But we have to keep in mind, Indian customer is a very, very value-conscious customer. Very value-conscious customer. So I don't know whether the charts there are, legible or not, but what it says is that, when you compare Indian customer with customers in Europe, Indian customer negotiates a lot. Indian customer always looks forward to more negotiation. And on the right, if you see, small example I will give you, toothpaste, day-to-day, item. If you see the cost of toothpaste, obviously it is going to be different because the PPP or the purchase parity is very different in every country. But if you equate the purchase parity and still see the cost of toothpaste per kg, India is $20 per kg and China is $28 per kg. That's the selling price. So Indian customer, we say China is very, very efficient. Yes, they may be efficient, but the customer is out there paying $28 per kg. And in India, customer is not willing to pay more than $20, which means that we will have to be more innovative than other countries because our customer is really looking forward to value, and especially keeping in mind that a lot of them are moving from deprived zone or a middle zone to an upper zone, which clearly tells us that there is a huge responsibility and opportunity for all of us. We have to keep that in mind. So what is required to succeed in a market like India? Because as I said, India is a very different market when we talk about manufacturing, whether we talk about demographic, whether we talk about consumer psyche, whether we talk about anything. So to succeed in a market like India, as I mentioned earlier, we cannot take labor cost only as a competitive advantage. If we have to make India a world-class manufacturing hub, we have to improve our competitiveness on a lot of other elements, like supply chain, infrastructure development. Today, when you see places in China, the big manufacturing company is in the middle and all the suppliers are in the same zone, very close. Even if we see India, if I see my own company, we have got a lot of suppliers here in Chennai, but still there are differences. We don't have a big commercial economic zone where we are producing things and everything is integrated. Regulatory environment. Incubating research and development and innovation. Now, that's very, very important for us to be competitive. And obviously, having right people, right talent with right skills. I think that is very, very important. And we should look forward to these things more closely rather than just working on headcount cost or labor cost. So, what I believe is that if we have to succeed in a country like India, the most important thing, and the starting point is, we have a very value-conscious customer. You cannot succeed if you are not meeting his demand. And this value-conscious customer is looking forward clearly to innovation. And we have to make sure that if we have to succeed, we need to have a right product, whether we talk about quality, whether we talk about features, at right time, with right price. If we don't give this, we won't succeed. And this can only come with innovation. And that is what is required today in our sector. So when we talk about total cost management, the key levers to deliver that is, first of all, the total delivery cost, what we say in the manufacturing, whether it is R&D, parts purchase, parts shipping, manufacturing costs, shipping costs, or the distribution costs. I think we have to make sure that all of us are working, seeing this whole thing on a 360-degree basis rather than looking it in bits and pieces. And I'll share some example, what I have seen in my organization. So clearly, 360-degree innovation, I think that is the buzzword. And that has to be across our value chain. When I say value chain, means manufacturing, supply chain, quality, everything. And when we talk about innovation across value chain, the most important thing is to create a culture in an organization which can challenge every cost. Because if you don't have a culture, nothing will happen. So to start with, innovation in design to cost process, right at the time when you are designing a product, you have to keep that in mind. And I'll elaborate, if I have to give example of my own company, we have launched this new car, a global car, which is a Quid. And Renault, so that you know, is a 118-year-old company, 118-year-old company. And Renault has never launched, in its 118 years, ever, a global car outside of Europe. They've never done it. First time they did in their 118 years of history, and that was India. And what happened in India, I'll take a few moments to share that with you, but let me first finish this. How to bring in innovation in the overall value chain. I think that it starts with innovation in design to cost process. Then innovation with suppliers. Innovation in the manufacturing, the process. Innovation in logistics. And all that put together, we also need innovation in marketing and sales processes. That will bring the right customer value. If we don't do that innovation, we cannot succeed. So just to give you an example. When I joined Renault, our market share was 0.1%. And today, yes, we are over 4.5%. So we had a plan to launch a small car, mini car. And every time I used to talk that, yes, Renault will be launching a mini car. Yes, Duster was a success. People used to look at me and say, nobody has ever succeeded in this country other than two players. It's a very tough field. You cannot. Everybody. But, team on my side, we were very clear that we want to succeed. And that can only happen with innovation. And when you are getting into a mini car, you have to make sure that you are giving the right price to the customer. So there was a discussion happening that how can we really bring the value in the car? A lot of you must be from automotive field. So I'll just give one example and I'll talk more about Quid later. But, in our business, if you want to make your car efficient, you have to reduce mass. F is equal to ma. So if you have to reduce mass, how can you reduce mass? By cutting down steel. But the moment you start cutting down on steel, you're compromising on safety in a small car. And mind you, we are a global company, and Quid is a global car which has to meet all the global safety requirements. So a small thing what we did. That is what is called design to cost. So in this car, not even a fastener, a patch is being used from an existing car. Everything is designed specially. And in a normal mini car, approximately, if you see fasteners, they are roughly around 16 to 18 kgs of weight. That's the amount of just fasteners which go into the car. So what we did while we were designing the car, we designed car with some special welding, and that is how the design was done. And we were able to reduce the mass of the car by 6 kgs just by knocking off those fasteners. 6 kgs. So what you do, you don't compromise on safety, you bring down the mass, and you do it with innovation. That is what I meant from design to cost. That is how we will have to start thinking. slightly unconventional way. So there are a lot of examples which I can share. But clearly, we have to see the overall ecosystem when we are talking of the cost. It's not the job of CFO. It's not the job of manufacturing head. It's not the job of engineering head. But I think it's the job of the whole team. And that is what I meant. If there is a culture of reducing cost in the organization, then everything will fall in place. So as I was sharing with you the story of Renault, and clearly we have a very strong commitment to India, and India is one of the top markets for us in the world. So clearly we made big investments in India. And I think one of the key things to also succeed is you can't have, half-hearted approach in the battle. And especially this is the message for multinational companies, because multinational companies, they always like to do sometimes quick fix things. We have a technology center there, bring something, and okay, fine, we know India, you need cheaper product, and this is what we will do. No, that doesn't work anymore. And if I'm talking of future, where India will be one of the biggest supplier of manufacturing products in the world, that can only happen if we are competitive. But to do that, first of all, we have to make sure that we are setting the right foundation. So investment has to be prioritized to deliver innovation and reactivity, because reactivity is also a big challenge, especially in the multinational world. So the first thing, which we did in last 5 years was, apart from having a plant in India, we have also a technology center in India, which is in Chennai here, where we have close to 6,000 people working, engineers, not only supporting India, but outside India. We have got 2 design centers, which are global design centers, one in Chennai and one in Mumbai. We have our own finance company, which we got in India. So the message is that you have to set the foundation right, you have to set the basics of ecosystem right if you really want to succeed in this country. And the result, as I was mentioning to you, was Renault Kwid. Now, this is just one car, but because what we created was a CMF-A platform. And as you know, one platform can make anything between 4 to 5 cars. So we are, even today, the only company in this country which has got 98% localization, 98% localization from the day of launch. And I know a few of our suppliers are sitting here. So you know it very well how strongly we went for this localization. And this was done with the strong foundation I was talking to you, and making sure that there was a 360-degree innovation in the whole value chain. So when you design a car, you keep in mind Indians want, all of us, small car, India is one of the biggest small car market. We, in India, buy small car, not by choice sometimes, or rather I would say most of the time. We buy because of financial reasons. But what we need is a big small car. And that is what, so if you see Kwid, a boot space we created was 300 liters, wherein in a small car, normally it is 140 liters. Because we know that a guy who's buying this car, sometime will be going to station or airport to pick his family members. You need boot space. You need ground clearance because the roads are not great in this country. So, a ground clearance of 185 mm, which was created like an SUV. So I can go on and on innovation, what we did in this car. But the whole idea is that all the points what I was mentioning earlier, to have a product at the right price. Because in this country, if you have to succeed in any business, any product you are dealing in, 5 rights have to be there, 5 rights. If any one of them falls, you won't succeed. So 1, right product with right feature, with right value, with right timing, and right strategy. If any one of them fails, you don't succeed. So we have to keep in mind that these 5 rights have to be there in our day-to-day business. Whatever we are thinking, whatever we are doing. And today also, till today, This is the biggest Make in India story. Biggest Make in India story. And we were very fortunate that the Prime Minister of the country acknowledged that, and not only he acknowledged that, but he got two Prime Ministers coming and seeing and sharing with him what a multinational company can do in India. So clearly, all of us have an opportunity, but we have to start thinking differently. Because if my company or my team or I would have just stopped by thinking, no, everybody has failed in small car, so what is my chance of success? We would not have achieved what we have been able to achieve till now. And I think in recent past, this is also one of the biggest success story on the commercial side in mini car space. So by way of sharing my own examples, I really want to encourage you to think differently. Because success today, we made this car, and then we started our exports in Sri Lanka. I just heard we have somebody from Sri Lanka also here. Yeah. So today, we launched our Sri Lankan operation in June, and we are already number 2 player in Sri Lanka. So if you make right product at right price, with right features, with right timing and strategy, I think nobody can stop you from success. And if I see today the top 10 selling cars in India, you will see that there are, apart from Renault, there's only 2 brands. These are in terms of value. So for us, the strategy was to find depth in the business, to succeed in the segment where you are, and then continue. We have still not achieved what we want to achieve in India, but we are having a step-by-step approach. But at least we have a car which is among the top 10 selling vehicles in this country. And that makes us a company which is one of the fastest growing automotive company. And we are already number 6 in terms of ranking. And if I see all the players, those who are from 1 to 5, they are at least in India for minimum 20 years to 35, 40 years. And all of them, those who are below us, are also here for more than 10 years to again 40 years. The idea is not here to talk more about Renault, but idea here is that if you are different, if you are innovative, if you are open to right cost, because why we succeeded? Because we got a car at a great car, rightfully designed, at a right price. At the end of the day, value matters. And that can only come from people like us who, if they think differently, can really give some wonderful results. So, if I have to conclude my remarks, and then, I don't want this to be just communication, but I think I would love to have more conversation in this session. So, clearly, if we have to build a company, we have to build a company which has to be customer-centric. Sometimes, you may think these are just words. In any forum you go, this is what you hear. But reality is, if you keep your customer in mind, if you understand your customer well, you will find very innovative ideas. And at least I have seen that in my professional career. So as I was mentioning, understand what your customer wants. Work with your suppliers. I think one of the biggest learning what Renault had, and I don't know how many of our suppliers are here, but at least I met someone. And our suppliers will acknowledge, sometimes when you are a manufacturer, you see your supplier like this. That's not the right approach. Our suppliers are our partners, and our suppliers will vouch for it that we worked with them very closely and said, can you come with an idea? And how to design this, because our suppliers are also, they have got a lot of experience. So our suppliers also helped in bringing innovation. I think that's the spirit of partnership which is required, because nobody is an expert. So one of the success, and I give a lot of credit to our suppliers for what we have achieved in India. And as I said, innovation across the value chain, that's very important. And finally, coming back to total cost management, clearly we have to leverage that to build this resilience in our business model. It has to start from design to cost till the end. That's how we have to create our business model. And the most important thing to achieve that is culture. To build a culture in an organization which is cost-conscious culture, which is innovation-driven culture, which is customer value-driven culture. If we have that with us, nothing can stop us to succeed. Saying by Peter Drucker, all of us know he's a big management guru, and I strongly believe in it. And whenever I meet my supplier friends, whenever I meet my dealer friends, whenever I meet my own colleagues in the company, this is one thing which is there always on my slide, and I will take this opportunity to share, is culture eats strategy for breakfast. We can make great strategies, but if we don't have culture, we will not succeed. So I think as leaders, we have to make sure the starting point is to build a culture in the organization with a clear mindset, and I think a lot will follow. So these were my thoughts for a total cost management, and I'll be very happy to have more conversation with you because we have some time on hand. Thank you.
I think a very inspiring story. Thank you, Sumit. Thank you for that. So let's welcome some questions quickly. Please raise your hands, identify yourself, keep the question as short as you can so that we can get many more of those. Yeah. Can somebody help with the mics? Yeah.
Sumit, good morning.
Hi.
I'm Vivek from Mahindra.
Hi.
Congratulations for the quite insightful sharing. You talked about initially and also ended with cultural change, but probably you did not touch upon in as many details. So would you like to share a couple of examples where the drivers for the cultural change in the organization from wherever it is to a total cost management company?
So I think, I think the first point, and I'll share at least about what we did in our organization. Cultural change can only come when people believe in what you are doing. That's very important. And I think that was my key task. And if you see as leaders, as most of you are leaders, so I will stick to some leadership points here. Just imagine a boat. Imagine a boat where there are 10 people. And that's our day-to-day business, which is our team. Imagine a boat which has got 10 people, where there are 3 people who are fully engaged, and they are rowing the boat, very fast. This is what happens. There are 5 people in the boat, which are just, they are the people, those who are just sitting. They are not engaged. They are watching the scenery. And there are 2 people left. And what they are really doing is they are trying to sink the boat. That is what is the importance of engagement of people in your mission and goal. As leaders, it's our job to make sure that instead of those 3 guys being engaged, those 5 guys, those who are seeing the scenery, should also get engaged. And at least the 2 guys, those who are trying to sink the boat, you know exactly what I'm saying. So at least those guys should not be sitting on your boat. Once you do it, once you bring engagement among people, you drive a cause. Big things happen for cause. All of us are very nice people, but something happens with our religion, with our family, we can turn into very different people because, for a reason, a cause. So I think that's very important. Engagement of people is the first step, and then once you have engaged people, whatever vision, mission, goal you give to them, they will go out of the way to do it, and I believe strongly, and I've seen that people doing in my organization, in what we call in management terms, A, B, C, D, above and beyond the call of your duty. So I think that's very important to build a cultural change. The first step as leader is to make sure that you have right people sitting on the boat, not watching scenery or trying to sink your boat in your team. So that's how I would say, we can go on and on this topic.
Just to add to what Sumit said, completely echo what he said. But just to add to that, creating that compelling vision compelling need to do something will galvanize people behind a leader. I think creating that passion behind a goal or that compelling need, it's this or nothing. We have to meet this goal, otherwise we are useless. I mean, that is the kind of engagement, that compelling vision if you build, you will find people much more engaged. So that's what is my take on that. Sorry
Absolutely.
for...
No,
sorry
absolutely,
for
you're right. Yeah. Yes, please. Maybe you can take one more mic in the share the mic.
Good morning, Mr. Sumit. I worked for one of your vendor companies and was involved in the development of the A platform. We were supplying as one of the vendors of those companies. Congratulations for the quid and also the developing the CMFA platform on a global scale. I just wanted to ask you only one question, that is regarding the interest costs. You said world over it is 0 to 5%, but here we have between 8 and 30%. And do you see that interest rates coming down, number one? Number two, in the context of the NPAs that are prevailing with our banks, so how do we get the interest costs to a reasonable level? Because whatever we drive efficiencies within the manufacturing setup, we can do only up to a certain level for achieving the total cost management.
Sure. So I'll start with your second question first. What was happening in last, I would say, 3 to 4 years at least, is that banks were having a lot of bad debts with small and medium enterprise. So what was happening, banks were giving either loan to good companies on the top, good interest rate relatively, or they were strongly doing retail lending, housing loans, car loans to right people with CIBIL score, where they were charging higher interest and they were averaging their cost. But the small and medium enterprise lending was not happening. And this is true for last, I would say, 4 years. Because the banks were having balance sheets which were bleeding. And they wanted to cut down their risk. And to cut down the risk, either they were going to the top of the pyramid or on the retail lending side. So I think with this demonetization happening, clearly the banks are flushed with funds. So one good step was in the last budget, the government gave money for banks to write off certain amount of the bad debts and NPAs. And you will see that happening now more because banks are flushed with deposits. You know, if we take an average, forget about what money people have changed, but I was talking to one of the guy in the banking industry. They expect roughly around 2 lakh crore will come into bank accounts, which are household savings, you know, people like us, those who are having cash and they have put it into bank. It won't go out very fast, which means banks are going to generate interest incomes, which will be running into thousands of crores. So banks will cut down their NPAs, they'll be healthy, government will be flushed with funds, so they will be pushing for lending in small and medium enterprise or priority lending. And interest rates have to come down because the basic principle is that if banks are flushed with funds, they are not going to give you high interest rates on your fixed deposits. And the inflation is now, it has crashed in last, I would say, 3 weeks. So there is no reason not to cut down the interest rate because that is, inflation is one of the biggest stress for banks. So if I talk of yesterday, it is too premature. I was not expecting any interest rate cut because we still don't know the full impact. But I'm sure I see in a horizon of 6 to 12 months, at least 2% interest rate going down. Just imagine what will it give to our economy, not only in manufacturing, but people like us, those who have got housing loan, if you cut down by 2%, means how much of disposable income will come to us. So I see, you know, a good future, and for sure the interest rates have to come down. Government also knows that we can't be competitive. This whole Make in India will not work if our interest rates are not down. So I strongly believe that at least there would be a correction up to 2% in next 12 months.
Okay, with that, okay, the last question to the lady, please. We've run out of time, please. We will take the last question from the lady. Yeah.
Sir, I request,
Thank you so much.
you can allow me one more question.
1 second. Okay, we'll see.
Good morning. My name is Mrs. Rama Venugopal, and I'm a management consultant basically. I've been working with a lot of MSMEs, especially in the engineering sector, and I believe in design thinking and developing the innovation hubs. Now, you were talking about the OEM's experience, the cultural shift that you're bringing within the organization to really bring that, extend that value proposition to your customer. I have not really seen any of the OEMs engaging their tier 1, tier 2 or tier 3 vendors in this design thinking or innovative thinking process. I guess if you can actually set up hubs to allow your vendors to come up with this kind of initiatives, I guess more and more process improvements can happen, and that is when actually you will be bringing the true value addition. I guess all the OEMs have to come forward to establish this design thinking labs or innovation hubs for your vendors, and this is my take on this. Thank you.
Sure, ma'am. I strongly believe it. And as I was sharing what we have done, I think we could not have got a success with CMFA platform or with Quid if our vendors were not engaged with us right from the design. And if you talk to any of our vendor who has worked on this project, I think all the inputs have come jointly. So it would be very inappropriate for me to talk about other OEMs, but at least I can talk about what we have done here.
Yeah. Gentlemen, ladies, we've completely run out of time. We can take this offline with Sumit. Can we? Can we take it offline? Because the next session is going to start. So with this, let's give Sumit a big hand. And thank you very much, Sumit.